It's this idea that we help businesses implement the systems, the processes, the technology so that everyone can keep moving on the same page. Everyone can continue to grow, continue to build, continue to move despite not having the answers, despite feeling overwhelmed, despite feeling all the uncertainty that the market is creating. It's about continuing to grow, build, develop, and nurture.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast. I'm thrilled that you're here with us to join us as we embark on a journey to help you live your best audacious life ever. Our goal here is to inspire, motivate, and empower you to take bold steps towards your dreams. I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to all of you for spending some time out of your busy day with us. Your support means the world, and I'm excited to share valuable insights that can help you on your path to audacity. Now, imagine building a thriving garden. To flourish in a garden needs more than just sunlight and water. It requires a well thought out plan, processes to nurture the plants, connections amongst the various spaces, clear communication for their growth, organization of resources, and a personal touch to ensure that each flower blossoms beautifully. Similarly, in the world of business, the importance of processes, connections, communication, organization, and personalization cannot be overstated. Just as a gardener cultivates relationships with their plants, a successful business leader nurtures connections with clients, adapts to changing environments, and fosters a culture of innovation. Today's guest exemplifies this approach, showcasing how staying innovative and adapting to challenges sets him apart as a leader. Today, I'm joined by Ernesto Mandowsky. He's the founder of MDM, a company dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build their million-dollar machines. With over 12 years of experience in systems engineering and restaurant technology, Ernesto has a unique perspective on how to implement effective processes and systems that drive business growth. His journey has taken him through various roles where he has continually innovated and adapted to challenges, ultimately leading him to be leading him to the entrepreneurial path that he's on today. I got to tell you, his insights are particularly relevant to our discussion as he embodies the principle of nurturing relationships and staying adaptable to an ever-changing business landscape. His focus on building strong connections and creating processes that allow businesses to thrive makes him an ideal guest for our conversation today. And I tell you, again, Ernesto was great to chat with. You're absolutely going to enjoy him. So I'm going to stop talking, get out of the way, and check into what Ernesto has to share. Hey, Ernesto, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you, Audley. I'm looking to make this an audacious conversation.
Absolutely. I mean, we do like to dig into that the spirit of audacious, if you will, and really it's about encouraging individuals to live their best audacious life. And with that, there are inherent risks that will come. There's chances that you're going to have to take. There's new ground that you're going to have to forge. There's steps that you're going to have to take where you can't see the pathway ahead. But there is a solid, firm belief, and I believe that those steps, those actions, those progress forward, they're absolutely necessary, regardless of the outcome. And I know we center a lot around the outcome and like, oh my gosh, I got to do this because it's get here. And sometimes that happens, but sometimes it doesn't. But it doesn't mean you don't take the step anyways. And so maybe as a starting point, Ernesto, I can get you to introduce yourself to our audience, fill them into what you do and what's got you to the point that you're at right now.
Yeah, thank you. And I love the precursor, by the way, the context of the show, because I fully align with that. I fully align with like, hey, you got to set yourself up so that you can keep moving forward, despite not knowing, despite not having the answer, despite the uncertainty. It's all about keep moving
Yeah.
on. But how I got here, basically, I spent 12 years exploring the possibilities of systems engineering, restaurants, and technology. And in the beginning of the journey, a lot of people were like, oh, what is that? Or restaurants fail, or that's a dumb idea, or you shouldn't do that. And despite all the negative feedback I was getting, I just kept trucking along. I created jobs inside of restaurant groups, inside of tech startups, inside of 100-year-old family-owned steakhouse,
Okay.
helping them reinvent with technology. And at the end of that job, I basically realized I was masquerading. I was hiding from what I really wanted to do, which was start a company.
Hmm.
And so in 2020, during COVID, when the world was going through its renaissance,
That's
I
right.
took the opportunity and started my business 4 years ago. That's what I've been up to since then.
So let's sort of talk about the business because it's sort of it's from what I understand, it's kind of an offshoot of what you were doing, but it's at a whole other level that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So my business is called MDM, and that will mean many things to different people. For
Okay.
early stage entrepreneurs, they might think of it as the $1 million machine. uh, for later stage entrepreneurs, momentum driving machine, market dominating machine. It's this idea that we help businesses implement the systems, the processes, the technology so that everyone can keep moving on the same page. Everyone can continue to grow, continue to build, continue to move despite not having the answers, despite feeling overwhelmed, despite feeling all the uncertainty that the market is creating. It's about continuing to grow, build, develop, and nurture.
So what I find really interesting is when you're going through whatever it is, and let's we'll stay in the business space for example because we're talking about here, but you're going through the business space and there's that uncertainty that's there. There's things that we all know. There's things we got no control over. Things it's going to happen. We've got to succumb to the will of whomever and move forward. What I find really interesting, and I can even speak for myself, that when I'm sort of trudging through something that's uncertain or unknown, the thing that I fall back on are the things that I'm sure of. So the processes that you build in place, the systems, right? The elements that you know work and give you that assurity. At least there's this one thing that will keep me grounded. And so to hear that you're providing that for businesses, I think that's a brilliant direction to move in.
Thank you. Yeah, I try to bring a different approach. It's not like, oh, you must implement a process, like because people have that bad reputation from corporate or from their former jobs, like, oh,
Okay.
you must be in compliance. But it's like, no,
Right.
how do you rewrite the story to actually get people excited about
Yeah.
creating a process for themselves? And
And so I'm curious what those conversations look like because on the surface, if you came to me and said you need a process, I'm like, that's boring. I don't do processes. I want to do work. I want to generate. I want to create. I want to do what my business is intended to do. How do you get people excited about processes? Because I don't think on the surface is an overly exciting thing for some.
that it's not exciting, and no one cares about systems. Like they don't care
Right.
about software. Like they don't care about that. They care about the result.
Right.
So what I do is I use something that you, Audley, I, Ernesto, love. And what is the universal love language that everyone has a connection to? Take a guess.
Money.
That's one. Okay, take another one.
Happiness, fulfillment,
Happiness, fulfillment, food,
satisfaction,
food,
food. Oh, there we go. There we go.
food. Everyone has a grandma's favorite recipe. Everyone
Yeah.
has a experience at the diner. Everyone remembers where they proposed to their partner, or a special experience around the dinner table. And when I look at my 12 years of experience in restaurants, and I can take these lessons that everyone has a connection to, everyone has gone to a restaurant or a food truck or some experience with it, you help connect those dots to their business. And so you use stories like, hey, when you go to your favorite pizza shop, do you get that pepperoni pizza the same way every single time, which is why
Mhm.
you love it so much? Yeah. Oh, well, that's why you need to have an offer that has the same exact steps fulfilled the same way every single time. Oh, but my client wants, oh, well, if your client wants an extra bottle of wine with their website, you could sell them an additional charge.
Right.
But you use these stories to help them like understand, oh, if they want three more sessions, I have to charge more for the time. So it helps people to understand the why.
Right. I like I like that example of creating that same experience for clients every or customers or clients and every single time they come through your door. Um, they got there for a reason. and you want them to keep coming back for that same reason. If they find others too, then that's great too. But the core of what you do should remain unchanged. So it sort of leads into the conversation about the significance of consistency in the entrepreneur business space, and how systems and processes help with that.
Correct. Exactly. It's not just you want to get your pepperoni pizza every single time, but you want to tell your best friend and the 10 people you serve at the nonprofit community board on about this amazing pepperoni pizza. So when they all go, they experience the same thing. And then they keep
Mm,
going and the ripple effect. And now you don't need to spend money on marketing. You don't need to spend money on Google ads that go nowhere. You can just have what the tech world calls product-led growth. You can now have an amazing product and the product can sell for you.
got you. Got you. Ernesto, I'm curious, how did you land on this? Like, I mean, it's as brilliant as I say it is, it's also very simplistic in terms of the concept and easy to understand. I'm curious, sort of, how did you figure it out?
Kind of a combination of things. Are you familiar with Michael Gerber, the
Uh,
E-Myth?
no,
So
no.
Michael Gerber wrote a book, I don't know, 10 years ago, 20 years, long time ago, called The E-Myth, the Entrepreneur Myth.
Okay,
And he tells a story. He's also kind of like me, like a business organizational coach, uh, many millions of dollars ahead of me. But his book talks about a pie shop,
okay,
talks about Sarah, who's running a pie shop, and he's like kind of teaching her the concepts, and he's using that book, that fable, as a metaphor to
okay,
teach the readers. And so I said at the time that I read the book, I was also working in restaurants and I was struggling
okay.
learning how to connect all the technology pieces. And I said to myself, the restaurant industry is going through a revolution. This was in like 2010, 2011,
Okay.
and people are not teaching this. And so at the time I said, I want to write a book. I want to teach people about what I was learning. And between reading Michael Gerber's book and going through my own life experiences, had like, okay, how can I create my own flavor of this? And
Mm,
in 2020, when I started my business, and I said, okay, I think it's time now for the new E-Myth, or the modern version that it
right.
actually incorporates technology, that's actually using software that entrepreneurs are using today. And so that's how I kind of bring in these different uh inspirations into the work I do today.
I also think by sort of looking at that, focusing on processes, you allow yourself as a business to really dig into who you are and carve out your niche, right? And that way you can be very, very specific. Is that is this is just me, the layman, speaking of it, but is that part of the process in all this?
Yeah, I think niche is people think of niche and it's like, oh, what industry or like what
Right.
size business?
Okay.
And niching actually, it's so much more than that because there are hundreds of business coaches out there. There's so many process coaches out there,
Hmm.
hundreds of podcasts. But like, okay, why Ernesto? Like, what makes his thing different?
Okay.
And as I've been describing, it's like, okay, I use the hospitality stories, I use the metaphors, I have software templates. And when you just look at your product and how you deliver it,
Hmm.
you can niche just inside of that. But people rarely take the time to think so deeply around like how they deliver what they deliver. But if they did just take an extra minute or month and be like, wow, how can I make the pepperoni pizza so absolutely legendary that people come back for more? Are you familiar with hot honey?
Yeah. Hmm.
So some chef
Yep.
out there
Yep.
like
Yep.
took honey, combined it with pepperoni flakes, and put it on the pepperoni pizza, and the guy
Yep.
is a legend now. And so it's like, what is your hot honey in your service? Like, what is that thing that makes it so different that you become known for it? And so that is how when people take the time, they can like niche into their space and how they deliver
Right.
the websites or how they deliver, whatever it is that they're delivering.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've always been a fan of sort of the personal touch, right? Like, I think more and more as the marketplace gets crowded and there's lots more businesses and everyone's competing for the same number of eyeballs or dollars, if you will. When you're able to sort of connect on a personal level, so this is Uncle Vinny. Let's say with the pizza shop, right? Uncle Vinny's been here since 19 whatever. This business has been his family for all these years, and now his kids run. Like that kind of stuff is compelling to people, right? When you actually sort of know these individuals. Is that something that you kind of recommend as part of? Do you want to dig into the story as well, or how important is that to you?
It's super important. It's super important. Have you heard of Robin Dunbar or Dunbar's number
I
before?
have. You got me stumped. I got a few things I got to
It's
check on. That's no.
oh, no worries. We all have our gems of knowledge. Robin Dunbar he was a professor, a researcher, and he came up with a number, which was
Mhm.
150. And 150 is the number of like it's like the working memory in your head of how many relationships you can keep up with, like
Okay.
actively.
Okay.
And so, like, that's great. Okay, your tribe, if you're thinking of like your tribe, there's about 150 people in there. You help each other survive and thrive. But like when it comes to you're growing a business, sometimes Kevin Kelly says, "Oh, 1,000 fans. Like you need 1,000 fans, or you need 10,000 followers, or you need a lot more people."
Hmm, hmm.
And so, your question about personalization is it's kind of a paradox. How do you grow your business and keep track of hundreds, if not thousands of relationships, but also applying a personal touch? And
Right.
going back to that pepperoni pizza example, like what are you
Mhm.
going to make it special? It's like, what aspects of a personal relationships do you want to keep in touch with? You and I, we're going to have a relationship. I know that you have the Audacious Living podcast. You like to interview these types of guests, but what's your favorite food? What books do you like to read? These are all properties. These are all data properties that you can keep track of in a CRM, which is a customer relationship management
Right.
tool.
Hmm, hmm.
And every time before you and I talk, I could fire up Audley, just like a quick refresher. It's like, oh, he loves nonfiction. He loves pepperoni pizzas. Okay, great to see you. Thanks for the referral. Here's $100 pepperoni pizza in Toronto because I know that you live in Toronto because you mentioned it in the conversation.
Right.
And so those are some like ideas of, how do you use software? How do you use tools to keep track of these relationships at
That's
scale?
right. That's right. It is skill, and I will tell you a part of the in the toolbox of skills required would be the ability to be an active listener, to be able to engage with your customers in a manner that you're understanding them, that you're hearing them, and also that you're able to sort of implement the feedback that they've given you, or at least take it into account. But it doesn't happen unless you're actively listening to what's going on.
Correct. It doesn't happen. I like to think of my clients, founders. We are pioneers. We are curious individuals that are out there in the market solving problems, listening to our clients, listening to what they're dealing with, taking that back into our product development lab and continuously fixing the product. What gets in the way of that though is that we're having 50 conversations a day. We're taking notes literally here on sticky notes. You can't see it, it's blurred. We have sticky notes, we have journals, we have
Right.
Apple Notes, we have WhatsApps, email. Like there's just so much technology. It's so overwhelming. And we were never taught how to work smart. How do you take that AI note taker that's literally in the Zoom room already, because it's like normal, have it already filter through the feedback, already update the CRM. And if the
Wow.
technology isn't perfect, how do we train a human on our team to do this work and help us and support us?
Right.
Because if we don't have that, the founder cannot be present
Hmm,
with the audience.
hmm.
And they're just always overwhelmed. They're, oh, from here to there,
Right.
to then, oh, I have 15 projects. Okay, well, do 5 projects. And so that's
Right.
what we continuously remind our clients. It's like, do less, go deeper, focus more intently, and
Gotcha.
get to the next. milestone.
I would imagine when you sort of get into these conversations, particularly using software AI as an example, to a restaurant owner, like they just want to run a restaurant. Now you're getting into sort of technology conversations where they're not, I want to make pizzas, right? Like Uncle Vinny wants to make pizza. He doesn't want to do this other stuff. How hard or challenging are those conversations to be able to get people to recognize the value in using these tools?
Well, first off, to clarify, and for the listeners,
Yeah.
we don't just work with we don't work with any restaurants. We work
Okay.
with all
Yeah.
sorts of businesses. Just
Yeah.
use them as a tool. But
Yeah.
um,
I'm sorry, because in your earlier career, that's where your focus was, and I sort of went right back to
correct,
that again. So my apologies.
correct. It's about the question of asking people what's important. Like, do you want to learn technology? Like, people don't have to. They don't
Right.
have to. They don't have to become expert. I mean, uh, we're a training company. We also have a services arm. Like, we actually implement and build all the technology that you need. You just focus on being the pioneer, focus on continuing to get more customers and grow the business, and we will handle the technology side. So we don't even have to have I mean, sure, if the person wants to internalize the functions,
Hmm.
when they're 3 million plus and they want a full-time staff member, sure. But these businesses don't need that. They need to create an offer, create a prefix promise, what I like to say, like a
Okay.
pepperoni pizza that's set
Yep.
in its way,
Hmm.
deliver it 100 times, and then change the recipe. But like, don't change the recipe until you deliver it 100 times and learn from that experience. So yeah, people don't have to learn the technology yet. They
Right.
have to learn what's working and, and go do it.
Got you. I want to go sort of go into the name or building. Like you help entrepreneurs build $1 million machines, right? That's sort of what you focus on. I mean, you're gonna get people's attention off the bat when you say that, like $1 million, let's go. But you sort of break it down into different pillars. I want you to sort of talk about though, just to get the frame and give our audience a picture of how you do what you do.
Yeah. So I use what's called the 5 recipes to build your NDM, your $1 million machine.
Okay.
The 5 recipes starts off with your transformation, which is what is the mold that you design to deliver a customer transformation. Earlier, we were talking about the pepperoni pizza
Yep.
example.
Yep.
The second recipe is connection. And that is how are you meeting all of the collaborators inside of your ecosystem to deliver more transformations. Sometimes these collaborators are direct clients, sometimes they are partners, sometimes they are podcast hosts. But it's this idea of continuing to connect with them. I said the example earlier of the CRM and keeping up with all these relationships.
Hmm. Hmm.
The third one is communication. And communication is thought of as marketing. So after you have delivered services to all of your clients, you've connected with your entire ecosystem, it's time to find more people to bring into the ecosystem. We dive into communication, marketing, building a digital world to attract new audiences to your business.
Right.
And when you think of most entrepreneurs, they have a very firm grasp on these 3 areas:
Hmm.
delivering a service in some way, shape, or form, connecting with
Yep.
people, and
Yep.
posting on Instagram.
Sure.
Now, what really sets the entrepreneurs from the CEOs apart are the ones who actually build a business, build a company with teams. And so, what do you need for that? Recipe 4 is organization, and that is aligning your teams, your tactics, how you do things with your technology.
Hmm.
So that is starting to set goals, starting to like sales management, start project management, like really intense processes, what we really focus on.
Right.
And the fifth one is how do you avoid becoming a robotic box like a corporation? You bring in the heart side. You actualization is the fifth recipe where you create a culture, you create values, you connect with your team, you create these rituals where people are feeling connected to the work that they're doing.
Right. Right, which is I think I talked about personalization off the bat, and it circles right back to that, and the significance of why that matters to businesses.
Exactly.
Um, uh, and so in addition, I feel like I'm jumping here, but because you do so many fascinating things, I got to take a moment here and shout out fellow podcaster. I mean, that's a part of your work as well. And the podcast is about regeneration businesses, right? And which is very in line with the work that you do. I wonder if you could expand on that further for audience.
Yeah, thank you. When I launched the podcast, it was called Regenerate Your Business. We are rebranding. We are
Okay.
shifting back into Momentum Multipliers, which is the
Okay.
same title of the book that's coming out, which talks about these 5 recipes. And the idea is that every conversation, you bring in a tactic
Hmm.
taught by someone else or myself that will multiply your momentum, that will enable you, as we opened up the episode, to keep moving forward, despite the uncertainty, despite the risk, despite the lack of, you know, whatever the answer is going to
Yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And that's what these 5 recipes do. They help you build that momentum to keep going.
And look, there absolutely are going to be times where we're not going to be able to see what's on the other side of the fence, but we got to cross that. We got to get there. I'll go back to my again the earlier comment I made was just around those processes that are are ingrained, that are in place, that don't change, provide some sort of comfort or relief that this is going to keep me firm. If something doesn't work, I can fall back on that. And I think that sort of a surety is really tremendous. It really, really is.
It goes a very long way. When you have a CEO who feels certain or confidence in his team, and if he knows that his sales team is going to follow up with every single lead that came in, he doesn't have to ask anymore, hey, did you follow up with those leads? And
Mm-hmm.
think about how many times in business are we asking, like, hey, like, how many times are we like messaging someone like, hey, what's up with this? Or what's up? Like, you
Right.
don't have to follow up with anyone anymore. Like it's
Mhm.
in your dashboard. You could just see it
Yes.
there.
Yep. 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 And it's quite disciplined, right? I think it builds that discipline that's needed to maintain consistency. When I was, when I was a high school kid, I had a part time job at we're back to Pizza Hut. I worked at Pizza Hut, and they to ensure that I know PepsiCo owned them at the time, and so to ensure that they made pizzas all the exact same. They had these specs and pictures of how you made pizza, and you put this plastic ring around the pizza dough, and you slap the pizza on that, and it told you the number of pepperonis that you put on it. And if someone wanted extra cheese, it told you how much you had. They had these little cups that told you per size of the pizza, and but that's the consistency. And so when so if an order came up in front of me, I didn't think, oh, what do I have to measure? No, I've got this little cup. I fill the cup up and I sprinkle it on. And there you go. That's all the cheese I need. Okay, now we got to get the pepper and you count them out, right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about here, aren't we? Isn't it?
That's exactly it. I mean, that sounds very robotic. It is,
It
but
was.
but it allows the employee to feel peaceful while like it gives the employee a way to produce value without having to think so much.
Right.
And
Right.
there's a conversation of like, oh, well, why does the Pizza Hut employee get $15 an hour versus like the digital marketing employee getting 40 an hour? Why? Because it's different value and
Sure.
people are paying for different things. But ultimately, whether you're making pizza or making websites, you want to have something that's just so not mindless, but freeing in a sense.
Got
If,
you.
if
No, it makes total sense. And freeing, I think, is a great word, particularly when you start to get busy, right? So, look, I vividly remember a Friday night in a pizza shop, right? What that looks like, and you're just pumping out pizzas, right? But so having those tools, having those systems, having those processes, having that plastic ring around the pizza helped me make sure I got the cheese. It didn't fly all over the place. It kept inside the ring, so we had the same product going out the door each and every time. So I do really think that's a good point. It's funny, I never thought of that till now. Like I was programmed to make pieces the same way for a reason. Never thought of it actually. funny how we think about it. But uh, uh, um, I want to bring it back to really. So this again, this podcast is really we encourage individuals to sort of take that first step. And what I'm sort of hearing from you is you're also encouraging businesses to take that step as a business coach. You're encouraging them to take that step. But you're doing it, and in fact, going back to the processes, you're instituting processes that can give them some level of confidence, security, and some assurity that it's okay to move forward.
Definitely the confidence, the certainty, the assurity that it's okay to move forward. But even more, I'm giving people a framework such that they can move forward, but
Yep.
also discover what makes them distinctively unique in how they
Mm-hmm.
do things. Like I'm teaching people, here's a very simple example. We were talking about the second recipe, connection, collaborating with your
Yep.
ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
One of the key framework, the key lessons that I say is every person on your list, you must have a next check-in date. Like when is the next time you're going to meet? And what is the next thing you're going to talk about? And I teach
Nice.
them that. And, okay, if you have 150 people, like every single one of them have to have that. And I also teach this concept of, hey, in our CRMs, we keep track of custom pieces of information. So earlier I said Audley likes to read nonfiction and he lives in Toronto and he likes pizza. I'm not telling people explicitly
Right.
what they need to keep track of. I'm letting them kind of think, okay, what is my business? What is the context? What is the nature? What makes me me? Okay, I want to keep track of A, B, and C. How would I do that? And then, I allow them to, or I instruct them on how to do that inside of their software so that they can have their own unique, distinct way of doing business, and also taking that next step forward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a piece in this that we haven't touched on because we're really focused on all the benefits and how it can help individuals and companies, organizations. But there's also a part of these processes that can, I'll use the word insulate during times of challenging moments and hardship. That can also help protect businesses. I don't know if you could talk about how processes can help in during challenging times or difficulties.
Well, staying on the example of the connections, um, when COVID happened and thousands of events got canceled and millions of speaking fees got evaporated,
Mm,
what did most people do? What could most people have done? When
go
you
online.
know, go online. But okay, go online. But okay, what does that mean? So if you know that you have your 150 people dialed in, you know exactly who your people are. And I know that
Mhm.
Audley does a podcast on Audacious Living, and I know that the other one is a marketer. And I'm just going to immediately start hitting everyone up and saying, "Hey, let's do some online programming."
Right.
And you're going back to that concept of following up with people and checking in with people and asking how I can help. And it's this idea that okay, the world is going to hell, but I can still connect with my ecosystem, see how I can help, see what I can do, and there's magic that will happen there versus
Right.
what I think 90% of the world did during COVID or 50 or whatever the number is, where they kind of froze. They didn't do anything. They kept watching the news and
Hmm.
saying, oh, COVID's killing everyone, whatever. Like, no, the people who survived are the ones who went into their processes, stayed committed to their practice, and made it out stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure, I can see that, and then that really, like I mean, the confidence comes to me right away, like what that does from a confidence standpoint. So it's almost okay. So we got through this. Like, okay, you really that it gives you a charge to move forward ahead again, right? Like it's like, okay, we got through this, was difficult. Let's charge ahead. And so it does so much. And it's funny because it's like I can see where people don't automatically connect with the value of the processes we're talking about, right? Or the uses of technology. They sort of gloss over or don't see it as important. But it really can. Throughout this whole conversation, the things you identified, it just speaks true to me. Absolutely. Why not have processes in place, and why not have systems that allow us to make things easier? We can focus on business growth as opposed to day-to-day mundane stuff.
Or day-to-day forest fires. This is a
Yeah.
very controversial statement, but I think a lot of people are martyrs
Okay.
and they have to be the story of entrepreneurship.
Mm.
And when I say that, like the story we are told is that every day is crazy and every day the customer fires and like we are literally believing that story and allowing it to run our programming.
Mm.
And no one is wrong. Like it's all true. Like, yes, there are customer fires every day.
Right.
Yes, you are dealing with things every day. And if you let that cloud up your entire mind space, then you will never make time. You will, you never work on your business because you're letting the story run you. And
Yes.
you don't, I think a lot of people don't set up the processes because they don't, they think it's going to be like, oh, weeks or oh, months or oh, I'll never get to that. It's like,
Mm-mm.
no, with my clients, I say, hey, look, 80-20, 80% of your week in your business, 20% of your week on your business. It's not that much. You could do 90-10 if you're really, I don't know, scarce. But even then, if you're working a 50-hour week, that still means 5 hours of your week you got to work on your business. And that is so much time. Like that is so much time. And in my community, like I have specific, like I have 5 hours of weekly programming
Right.
because of that kind of belief. Like, I'm standing for, hey, 90-10, 5 hours of programming. 3 of them are sync as a community. 2 of them are on your own watching content. But, you know, you make the time after 90 days, you'll be a whole new person.
It's exciting. Exciting. 90 days is all you need, right? I love it.
That's all you need.
I love it. Quickly before we go here, you mentioned your book that's coming out soon, right? I wonder if you could sort of a quick plug for that so people can be aware of it.
Book's soon. It's coming out soon. Coming out December 1st. Not on Amazon, not yet. Doing pre-sales privately on my website. And people who purchase the book, we have a fun annual planning event on the 12th
Okay.
of
Okay.
December.
In Miami, I assume.
Online
Oh,
actually.
okay.
So
Okay.
even you, Audley, if you want to come through, I will be happy to have you.
That's awesome. So I'd take the invite for sure. And so, what's the website? If people want to connect with you, learn more about you, or get a copy of your book or pre-order, where can we send them?
So we can send them to build.yourmdm.co.
Okay. Okay. And that's where we get all the insights, all the data, the invites to the big jam in 12th of December, which is awesome. Ernesto, this has been a great conversation, and I really appreciate the insights that you offered, and really, helping businesses scale is massive. It's just a massive, massive thing, and entrepreneurship sort of the backbone of our society. Like if you really think about entrepreneurs and how much is built on the backs of entrepreneurs in terms of our society and foundation, and so to strengthen that that segment of population is a fantastic thing. Thank you for doing this. It's been awesome. I appreciate you for being here on the Audacious Living Podcast.
Thank you, Audley. I appreciate you squeezing me in.
No problem. Be well. Back we are here on the podcast, and in our conversation where Ernesto shared the 5 recipes that form the foundation of his approach to building a successful business: transformation, connection, communication, organization, and actualization. What truly resonated with me was his emphasis on personalization and the importance of understanding your clients on a deeper level. This insight really struck a chord with me, and I got to tell you, because it's true, I believe in it genuinely, that those connections connections are at the heart of any successful venture. I loved how Ernesto illustrated his points through relatable analogies, especially the pepperoni pizza example, which is my favorite, because that made the concepts feel accessible and actionable. I encourage you to connect with him directly, and of course, you can find his contact details in the show notes below. Don't miss out on an opportunity to learn more about his expertise. As a special offer, Ernesto is providing pre-sales for his upcoming book, which will be available starting December 1st. Be sure to check out the details for this exclusive opportunity to gain insights directly from his work. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you've enjoyed our conversation, please take a moment to like, follow, subscribe, and share if you haven't already done so. Your support helps us grow and reach even more listeners who are eager to live audaciously. Until next time, keep embracing your boldness and living your best life. Be audacious.
You've been listening